Welcome to the Business Family Marriage Podcast with Tim Smoyer. This is his personal podcast where he shares what he's learning about growing a seven-figure business while also raising 7 children and deepening his relationship with his wife at the same time. He shares what he's learning, what's worked, what hasn't, what he's trying next to grow a fruitful business, family, and marriage. For more on that today, here's Tim.
Hello, Podians. Great to hang out with you guys again. Welcome back. It is a Saturday afternoon for me here recording this. It's our day of rest, and we've had a good day so far. Just hanging out as a family. Went swimming this morning in the pool. Had a good lunch. My wife and I started playing a new Xbox game together. It's called It Takes Two. And we've been enjoying it, and the kids have been hating it because all they do is hear Dana and I laughing and screaming because they're not allowed to have the screen time with us, which is really mean. So today we let them come in and watch as my wife and I played, and now they want to watch us play more. They love the game, and it is a good fun couples game if you're looking for something fun to do with your spouse. If you have an Xbox, I think it's on PlayStation 4 and stuff like that too. And now some of them are down for a nap. Dana's taking a nap. Some of the kids are down resting. I just made a cup of homemade iced tea. And by homemade, I mean like I literally went out to the garden and picked the sweet mint leaves that Dana planted and boiled them, made some iced tea. Sweetened it a little bit with some stevia that we grew as well. And I want to talk with you guys, just chilling here, about this thing that I've been learning about what motivates people to work. And there's two contexts, if you've been around if you've been in the audience for a little bit around this podcast. I've been talking about some organizational leadership principles that will grow both thriving businesses and thriving families, because a lot of those same principles that we're developing in our business also apply to growing fruitful families as well. And when it comes to motivation, I think this is something that I've been learning a lot about, first in the context of business with employees and our team, and then also in the context of family with our children. How do we motivate them to work? and what motivates them? And the system that that normally people follow in the business context is, you know what? If we want to motivate people to work, you pay them more money. And the more money you pay them, the more motivated they are. And there's been a lot of research done lately that has indicated that is absolutely not true. That the more money you pay someone does not mean that the better job they do or the harder they work. It does not motivate them. And the same with children. Maybe we're not paying them, but the old system of, I should say old, it's kind of like the current system of what of like reward or discipline. Those systems for raising children aren't really the most effective ones either. I'm not saying they're wrong or they're bad or any principle. Basically, I read a book called Drive. The author's name is Daniel Pink. It's called Drive: The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us, and it's based on tons of research and science and interviews and MIT studies and universities and blah, blah, blah. And the summary of the book, what Daniel Pink talks about in that book, Drive, is that higher pay and bonuses only result in better performance if the task is like really basic, really mundane, kind of like rote memory, just mechanical execution of this, that, and the other thing, just really those types of skills. And so it works. Paying people more money in the business context works to motivate them. It works if it's just, a really standard SOP, a standard operating procedure, and they just follow that over and over and over again, and you just keep generating a single result. However, if the task involves something more complicated. It involves more creativity, more problem solving, more mental energy, and just like it takes more from the person on a cognitive mental level, then it actually, if you paid them more to try to motivate them to do their job better, it actually demotivated them. And it actually, their performance decreased by paying them more money. There's a lot of really good examples in the book. One of them that really stood out to me was like this example of this guy who bought this horse and buggy because he just really loved riding his horse and buggy. That was what he did for fun. And he got a lot of joy and excitement out of it. Well, people started offering him like, hey, we'll pay you. Can you take us for a ride in this horse and buggy? And he was like, okay. And so he started doing it, make a couple bucks. All right. But as he started doing more of these, like for money, he's like the enjoyment of his horse and buggy hobby decreased, and he lost his excitement for it. He lost his passion for it. And it actually took away all the fun and joy and the drive and the motivation he had to want to use his horse and buggy once people started paying him to do it. But if he did it for free because he enjoyed it, that was actually all the reward that he really wanted. They also look at all these studies about artists and people who were commissioned to paint a work versus people who are just sent off to do it like on their own, just express yourself and do what you want. And when they had the judges come in to these different art shows, and the art that was commissioned, overall had lower scores and ratings and reviews from the judges than the art that was just created out of the person's heart, out of their passion. So money actually, and that becomes, and a lot of other research, I'm not going to get all to it. You can read the book if you like. I'll put a link to it in the show notes if you want to check it out. But money decreased people's motivation to work. If it was like a more cognitive, decision-making, creative type of thing. And so Daniel Pink's point is if you want to motivate your employees, paying them more money is not the answer. And he suggests that if you want to motivate your employees to work, like don't just pay them more money. You got to think of another way. Now he did say like pay them enough money so that the issue of money is off the table, is how he put it. Like so that they're not stressed, they're not worried about money, their needs are met, and they're able to take care of their family, and the money concern isn't one that's like on their mind a lot and distracting from the work that they would otherwise be doing. But there's that amount of money fluctuates depending on where you live and what the job is and things, I suppose too. But like I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the economy here is a lot less expensive, a lot more affordable than like, let's say, out in LA. So it's not like a price point necessarily, but nationwide, if I recall, it was like in the 60s, thousands of dollars a year. So, but that's like a national average, obviously. So to motivate employees beyond just kind of like doing some basic stuff, he says there's actually 3 things that motivate people in their work. And as I was listening to this book, I was listening to the audiobook while I was mowing our lawn, and it stood out to me that these 3 principles work just as well with our kids as they get older as they do with our employees. I was thinking of this kind of in both contexts. Like if I want to motivate our kids to do their chores, to do good work, and to be excited about the work that they're doing, as opposed to like putting it off, disobeying, not doing it. And I'll be totally honest, I haven't mastered this with my kids yet, or with my employees, to be honest. This is something I've been learning and thinking like, oh, I think there's some truth here that I need to take and apply. So these 3 things that actually increased performance and satisfaction for work that people are doing, whether it be in this context in the workplace, but I think also in the family. The first thing is that our employees, our team, and also probably our kids as they get older, Daniel Pink says the first thing they need is autonomy. They need to be able to be self-directed. he is what he talks about. He says that the more freedom you give people to tackle a problem or to address an issue based on their own solutions, the more likely they are to enjoy the process and get involved and enjoy it. And I think once we think about that ourselves, I know that's true for me. When I was an employee and people would, my superiors would say, hey, here's the problem we need to fix. Here's how you're going to go fix it. Now go do it. I honestly don't really just get that excited about doing it. I mean, I'll do it because it's part of my job. But if they said, Tim, here's the problem. How do you think we should solve this? I would be like, well, I don't know. Here's what I think. And all right, good. Sounds great, Tim. Go ahead and do that. That is motivating. That's empowering. Now, I know not everyone functions that way. I kind of want to talk to you guys on a different episode about personality assessments and how we use them both in our business as well as with our kids, not to label them or put them in a box or define what roles they play or anything. It's 100% about hey, can we just grow to understand each other a little bit better so we can mitigate some of the conflict that might otherwise occur. So for example, if it might be helpful for an employee, let's say my personal assistant, Stephanie, she needs to know, it's helpful for her to know ahead of time that sometimes I just get tunnel vision on stuff. And when she tells me something and it appears to her that I'm not listening, it's not that I don't value what she's saying or don't want to hear what she has to say or whatever. It's just I just need someone to kind of go and slack me across the face a couple of times to get my attention because I'm just so focused on this other thing, and it can be hard to pull me out. She's like, "Oh, thank you so much for telling me that ahead of time. I would have just thought you were didn't think what I was saying was important, or you just were dismissing it." I'm like, "No, that's not at all keep going." And that's part of my personality. I'm not saying it's a great thing, but I'm just saying that's the type of thing that these personality stuff help us address before they become issues rather than afterwards and not noticing it. So when it comes to autonomy, there's some people who I think, if we use the DISC personality profile assessment, for example, who are the high S's, the DISC, the S's they like the stability, predictability. They a lot of times it's the things that just kind of rinse and repeat, doing this over and over again. They feel content. No, they don't really like a whole lot of change. They like things just be pretty stable. And that person might not need as much autonomy as someone who's like me, who is a high D, which is the domineering, let me think of some other D word, defiant maybe, decisive, I think that's what it stands for. But some decisive type of personalities who are just oh, here's a problem. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. All right, here we go. And it's more of a big picture vision casting type of personality. So those people, I know for me especially, need more autonomy. So when it comes to our kids, I think the same thing's true. Our younger kids, the 3-year-old, we have identical twin girls who are 5, and even our 6-year-old, I think they still need very concrete, you do this, and this is the result. And they need to see that benefit, that reward, that payoff, or that consequence immediately to have that concrete association with the action that occurred and the result it generated. But our older kids, even, so our oldest daughter is 11, Ezekiel is 10, and Hallie is 8. Even Hallie a little bit, but especially Hannah and Ezekiel, they are starting to think more abstractly, and they are better at problem solving. And I can already see with them that when I just ask them to say here's the thing that needs to be done, do you feel like you know how to do that? And they'll think about it for a little bit, and it's more like me just empowering them to just go do that thing and figure out the solution rather than me telling them this is what you need to do and here's how you need to do it. I remember when I was a youth pastor for 12 years working with a lot of volunteers that it was frustrating for them, and it was also for me when I also in an employee position, but I learned especially with managing volunteers that if I delegate the responsibility for a task or for a role or a responsibility, if I delegate that responsibility, like you're responsible for this happening, then it's really empowering to them if I also delegate the authority that goes along with it, so that they have the authority to make the choices they need to make, the decisions, make the judgment calls they need to make in order to actually accomplish the thing that they're responsible for. I feel that if you just delegate responsibility without authority, it feels like a micromanaging position. It just, I don't know, saps a lot of the joy and energy out of it and makes it a really ineffective system. And even as a manager, like people are constantly now having to come back to me for answers. What about this and what about that? And I was the one making all the decisions, and I was still the bottleneck of all the systems, all the processes, all the things we were trying to get done, because everyone had to come back to me. So I think it's important to delegate the responsibility and the authority that goes along with it. And it's really hard, because with our kids, not to take that authority back. So if I tell one of my kids, like, hey, can you go mow this part of the lawn? And they decide to go in circles and all over, I might, and I have been like, I'm looking out at our lawn here, sitting in our sunroom here. I would and have said to like my daughter, Hannah, said, hey, thanks so much for mowing the lawn. I see you went in circles a lot. It got cut. Thanks. You got the job done. Do you think it would be more efficient if you just like went back and forth and overlapped a little bit, because you went over the same parts you mowed a lot by going in circles? And she's like, oh, yeah. Okay. And so the next time she did it, she went in rows, and she had a lot of gaps between. It was striped, but not in a good way, right? So lots of tall grass, stripes of tall grass. And it's like, hey, you see? Like, so I can lead and I can coach and I can train, but I'm not getting mad at her because she did it wrong. It's like, here's a better way to do it. What do you think about this? But still giving them the authority to ultimately say, you mow it how you want to mow it, but here's what it needs to be done. At the end of it, like, we can't have just stripes of tall grass, and it all just needs to be cut, okay? To me, I think of it as like, all right, if they burn an extra gallon of gas retracing their steps and they take an extra 30 minutes to do it, I don't care. It's more important that they feel motivated to do. That's a very small price to pay for enabling them to have the authority to get that job done the way they need to. So, all right, I think that makes sense. But autonomy is important with our team and with our kids. Now, I guess one other thought is that I wouldn't say you should blindly give authority. There's some people who maybe just aren't mature enough for that, or aren't ready for that, or don't feel comfortable with that, or whatever the case might be. So, but overall, if you want people to do a more creative, critical thinking type of job, they need autonomy, and you need to just let them free to do it. The second thing that Daniel Pink talks about in this book that gets results or motivates people and drives them in their work is mastery. And this is like they just want to get better at their skill, at their craft, at the thing that they're doing. So if it's someone on my team, I see this a lot with people on my team actually, which is awesome, where some of the YouTube strategists, let's take them for example. There's 4 of them, right? Hold on. Lennon, Delana, Ingrid, and Luke. Yeah, 4 of them. And then 5, including myself. So I see them often just trying to really improve what they do. There's this pride that they have in their work, and they strive to get better at it. And so for me, it's important for me to you can't see my hand motions. I'm waving my hand in a circle, trying to think of the right word. Not to foster that. There we go. Like to foster that drive to master their work by offering continuing ed opportunities. And as I'm learning things, I share it with them because hopefully it'll help them and what they're doing with people as well, with our clients, taking them to different conferences back when that was a thing. I think we're going to do that again this fall. As our team's going to go to one and do some of that stuff again. It'll be fun to do that. But Yeah, it's like, how do I enable the people in my team to master their skill, and how do I train them and when necessary? How do I let them loose when necessary? How do I let them fail when necessary? I do think failure is a really big part of it. I mean, just recently there is a situation where I was like, I don't know if this is what we should do, if this is how it should work, but I let it play out, and it kind of went the way I thought it was going to, and there's not a "I told you so" or anything like that. The learning experience for this employee was far more valuable than the hit that we took for it, and I anticipated that would be the case. So, but there's times where letting people fail and make mistakes is totally relevant and great and perfect. It's exactly what you should do. But yeah, but letting people master their skill, and that was really important. Now the thing that goes through my head with my kids though is like, they don't want to master doing the dishes. They don't really want to master cleaning their room. They don't want to master this thing. Or depending on the type of job, the employees you have, like, let's say you have a garbage collection service or something, like, how do I get my people to want to master that? And I would probably put that more in maybe the just kind of not as much critical thinking skill type of stuff. I could be totally ignorant. You can pardon my ignorance if that's the case. I don't know. I'm very thankful for those people, so I'm not belittling that at all. I'm just saying that's a different category of work. Like some other things, like working at a fast food chain restaurant or something like that might be as well. But I don't know how to get my kids to want to master that, unless it's this third thing. And I think this third thing is really important. At least it is for me. The third thing that he said, Daniel Pink talks about, that drives and motivates people is purpose. It's this desire to do something that is meaningful. It's important. There's like a vision behind, like, I can see how this is, like, what I'm doing now is going to get us to this other place where we want to be. And he talks about businesses who are just focusing on profit without really keeping the value and the purpose of what they're doing in front of people. They end up with unhappy customers and poor customer service. So he said it's really important to keep this purpose. For us, there's a difference between purpose and mission, but one of our core values at Video Creators, we have 3 external-facing ones, which is people first, mission-oriented, and results-driven. And this mission-oriented one is like, we are trying to reach more people and change their lives. And the way we do that is by influencing the influencers. These people who have audiences or are trying to grow their audiences are going to impact and reach people with messages that we don't have. But what if we could train them and equip them to reach millions of people a month with their message? Well, that could impact their lives. So we see it as like, the way we're going to impact millions of people's lives is by impacting the life of our clients first, and enabling them and equipping them to be able to go and impact and change more lives. So it's like this big ripple effect that happens that we get really excited about. And we literally, like, internally, we track who's a life changer that we're working with and who's not after every consultation, after every group coaching experience, after every long-term client relationship. He's like, is this person, and we define a life changer based on, do they share those 3 core values with us? Do we feel like this client is people first? Do we feel like they are results driven? And do we feel like they are mission oriented? Even if we say yes to those 3 things, then we label them as, in our internal CRM, as life changers. And our BHAG, our big, hairy, audacious goal is to work with 10,000 life changers by 2025 and equip each of them to reach 1 million people a month on YouTube, which would mean there's 10 billion life touch points happening every month on YouTube with people who are experiencing a message that could potentially change their life. So it's a really big mission, and we get really excited about it. And I hire people who embody those core values. And because that's a really big deal in our hiring process, we end up with a team of people who are really excited about that mission, who get really motivated by it, and they have this bigger meaning, this bigger purpose behind what they're doing than just revenue, just like a paycheck for them or something like that. So coming back to the kids, when it comes to like purpose and mastery, I feel like mastery for them is easier, or let me rephrase this. They're more motivated if the purpose is clear, and they can see the bigger pictures. And I do see that already at play with our older two kids, especially, and somewhat with Hallie, who's 8 years old, where we can see like, hey, we got to get the lawn mowed because we have a whole bunch of families coming over. They're going to be hanging out here at our place. We're going to have a big dinner together, and we tend to do that about once or twice a month. And so if they know like that's about to happen, and so we got the lawn mowed because it's going to make a much more pleasant experience because it'll be easier for the kids to play in the grass and for us to hang out, then they're more motivated to get that work done and to do a good job and to master it because they know like this is the goal. Doing the dishes, same thing. Like, hey, we gotta get this done because you could use like anything. It's like we got mice, let's say, for example. Like we got cats who thankfully take care of most of that for us. But we learned the hard way that we should get some cats, which no one in my house was upset about. I wasn't really upset about it, but they're all cat lovers. I'm more of a bird lover, to be honest, but that sounds weird when I say it like that, though. Bird lover, love birds or something. I don't know. But anyway, we got barn cats, and they do a great job with that. But if my kids understand like this is why we're doing it, then I think they're more motivated to clean the kitchen and get the chores done. Same thing if it would be like cleaning up their room. If hey, you need to do this because we're trying to avoid this consequence, or there's this thing we're trying to accomplish, even if it's on a really abstract level, which I don't think any of our kids are there yet. I think they're still they got to grow into this. But I see it even being like, hey, because one of the things it means to be a schmoyer is that we do the right thing, not necessarily the easy thing. That's like, if you think back to our primal branding language that we talked about with our family brand, forget, it was like episode 3 or something like that. That's like an internal language we use, is we do the right thing, not necessarily the easiest thing. And so the sense of purpose and mastery comes from this identity of this is what it means to be a schmoyer. This is who we are. This is what we do. And yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about this just in terms of autonomy, mastery, and purpose with our team as well as with our family, and how do we keep these things in front of our kids to motivate them to do work, not just for the sake of doing work, but because that teaching kids to do work is a big part of the process of them turning into fully contributing members of society. Having good work ethics, seeing problems and solving it is what entrepreneurship is all about. Business owners, and I'm not saying they need to be entrepreneurs or business owners, but anyone who hires them will want to hire them because they can see problems and solve them. That's what most jobs are about. What all businesses are ultimately boiled down to: solving problems. So I want them to be able to do that and train them well in that now. In our homeschool curriculum, one of the things we intentionally do is critical thinking skills. Each of the kids, starting in first grade, start with, I think it's called, what's the name of the book? Critical and Creative, that's what it's called. It's like a little workbook that each of them work through for their grade each year. And it's a lot of problem solving and developing those mental skills of how do you take a problem and come up with the right solution. So I think that's really important. And I see autonomy, mastery, and purpose as part of helping them enjoy work and seeing work as a blessing and not just as a curse. I know it's, and I think a lot of Christians kind of think of work as like a necessary evil. And I think of it, I read a really good book I'd highly recommend everyone read. It's called Every Good Endeavor by Tim Keller. And what he does, the subtitle is Connecting Your Work with God's Work. And what he does in that book is he pointed out to me that, hey, work was given, if you're a Christian, like this is, maybe you believe a little bit what the Bible says, work was given to Adam before sin entered the world, and it was good. God called that work good, and he blessed it. Sin entered, and the work became cursed. And so now work is toil. But that doesn't mean that work is still not a blessing. And I think we can all see that working for people, serving people, whether you're serving people, clients as a business owner, or you're serving as an employee, you're serving your boss in the business or the clients through the business. Like, it is a blessing. So I want my kids to grow up not just. I want them to grow up believing that. And believing it because they've experienced it as a blessing, and not just as like this thing that mom and dad make me do, because if I don't do it, I'm going to get a timeout, or I'm going to get disciplined, or I'm going to lose my screen time, or I'm going to like whatever, those things. Again, I think those things are appropriate for younger kids, but there comes an age as they start transitioning into adolescence where that's doesn't work as well, and probably starts to backfire more than it helps in some ways. In my limited experience, my oldest is 11. I guess I'll figure out like soon enough here how that works going forward. But as always, guys, I really want to hear what you're thinking and your questions and your ideas and your thoughts. There's a link in the show notes of this episode. You can just tap it, and don't have to download any apps or software, whether you're listening well, you probably are listening on a mobile device or wherever, a desktop or wherever, it doesn't matter. Tap it, and it'll ask you permission to enable your microphone. And yeah, just leave me a voice message. I'd love to include them in some upcoming episodes here where we can make this a little bit more of a dialogue. That's why I picked Anchor FM as like the app I'm using just on the go. I'm just recording and publishing these on my phone as I have time. And I picked Anchor not only because it makes that process really easy for me, but also because it makes it easy for you guys to make this a little more interactive than podcasts usually are. They're usually pretty one way, and that's fine, I suppose, but I love hearing from you guys. So use that link, leave me a voice message, your thoughts, ideas, feedback, pushback, or just questions about business and family. And hopefully I get my wife on here again soon. I liked having her. It seems like you guys really did too, because that episode did really good. I mean, like, it is far and beyond our number one episode. So might have been because it had a good title too. My wife, what was it? My wife explains our work-life balance or something like that. So anyway. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out. I'm going to go see how the kids are doing because they've been really quiet, and that's usually a really good thing or a really bad thing. So I'm going to go check on them while my wife is still sleeping, and I will catch you guys again soon for another business, family, marriage podcast episode. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.